So first of all, Dr. Sabine Donnai, thank you so much for having me. You're the CEO and founder of Viavi here in London. And your clinic is focused on using advanced diagnostics and personalized interventions to optimize wellness and longevity, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. And you personally, when I did a little stalking online, you've been working at the intersection of sort of preventative medicine, longevity, and detoxification for a really long time. What do you believe is sort of most people still fundamentally don't understand or misunderstand about toxicity in our current world today?
Oh, well, I think it's the least understood part of our health, really. I mean, if I would prescribe robust health, it is a table with four legs. And the vast majority of people have an idea of the first two, which would be your activity and your exercise. They would kind of know what they need to do. Then the second one would be nutrition. Okay, most people, maybe not most people, but most people that are interested in health will know what to do. Then the third one is sleep and relaxation. And a lot of people would understand that it is important, but hardly know what they really need to do about it. And then the fourth one is detoxification, which is kind of completely forgotten.
Very, very true. Very true. Well, I love what you're doing here. And my own experience with INUSpheresis here, I'm very excited to be a part of the process and to be working with your clinic here. But I wonder if you could explain for folks that are listening, what is actually INUSpheresis and what's actually being removed from the body? And why does it matter that we remove it from the body?
Oh, why it matters? Okay, it matters a lot. It matters because they're toxins. And the word itself, okay, when we think of toxins, we might be thinking of arsenic, which, by the way, we will be removing, okay, because we have a lot of arsenics that we get in contact with, unfortunately. But toxicity causes a chronic inflammatory reaction within our system. So in simple terms, it actually diverts the energy that we have to detoxification. And that energy really, I would prefer to use to slow down my aging, to stay healthy. If there's a cancer cell, to suppress that. That's what I want to use my energy for, and to feel energetic. I don't want to, I mean, I need energy to detoxify, but I don't want all my energy to start shifting there. And even then, in the vast majority of people, that is not sufficient. And that's why we're seeing increased problems with autoimmune disease, with cancer in young people, cognitive decline. I mean, it's not a surprise that those problems actually are just increasing in this day and age.
It's amazing. And when someone does a process like ionospheresis here with you, how quickly would someone feel a difference? Or, what's actually happening physiologically when they go through this process?
That depends very much on the person. It's completely individual. So somebody that has been looking after their health and already has kind of prepared their system, has been supporting their physiology for a period of time, they would normally feel quite great because it's just that added value on top of it. People that we're seeing that have got fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, early Alzheimer's, I mean, that for them, actually the treatment itself can make them feel a bit worse the first couple of times, and then the benefit starts calling in. So it's completely individual, as in how way we catch you in your health journey.
Very, very helpful. And how much of cognitive performance, when you think about focus, clarity, decision making, how much of that is impacted by toxic load and inflammation in our bodies that this solves for potentially?
Yeah, I mean, if you think of toxicity, and as I was earlier, I was talking about energy that is necessary to detoxify. Our energy gets produced by mitochondria, which is like a little battery in all our cells that we have. The vast majority of our mitochondria are actually in our brain, because our brain, despite it being only 1.5 kilograms, uses 20% of our energy. So the lining of all our axons are lined with mitochondria, loads and loads of energy. So toxicity is going to have often the first impact is going to be on our brain. So people they're not going to be dement, but they're just going to have a brain fog. And they often just say, well, I'm just tired, or I just don't feel too well, or it's aging, or I've been stressed. And people find loads of excuses, whilst often it's a toxin causing it.
And do you think that high performers or folks that are in incredibly stressful careers, employment of some kind, are more at risk due to lifestyle demands of having this toxic buildup and toxic load?
I mean, there's two impacts on that, on the high performers. One is they'll be in the main more stressed. And stress, again, steals a lot of energy because it makes you cope with the now rather than I'm focusing on the future of my health. That sleep in the mains can be disrupted. But one of the biggest impacts that we have definitely seen because of the current clients that we're seeing here is that they tend to be high performers because they often have a mutation in the particular gene called CRNT gene, which increases their dopamine in their prefrontal cortex. So they're very positive thinkers. They make things happen. Okay, there's never is a problem. Okay, I can do it all. So you often push beyond the reasonable. So if they feel tired, they'll hit the gym harder. Okay, rather than saying, well, hold on, is that right for me? Because that dopamine just keeps them driving. So they often then push themselves into a burnout, and toxicity plays into that because it's just that extra load on the brain. So yeah, they are more vulnerable.
Absolutely. And when I think about one of the biggest stressors and that so many of us endure, and that's travel and the impact of travel on our health, what are some of the biggest hidden contributors to toxic load that are a result of travel? Yeah.
I think we need to differentiate between long distance travel and short distance travel.
Sure.
And frequent travel or not. Okay, so let's talk about the long distance and frequent travelers.
Sure.
Okay, and I think it's often it's not the obvious one. So the obvious one will be benzene and fumes and I mean we will be finding benzene in your eluate. There's no doubt about that. Okay, I mean I can just, although I haven't seen the results, but it will be.
Sure.
Okay. So
A lot
frequent
of travel over many years.
exactly. So and that builds up. But it is also the food on the plane will be in plastic, will be reheated. You'd be on fire retardant seats, okay? And very seldom people will, well, they will touch the seats, but they're not going to clean their hands before they start eating a piece of bread or a nut or anything like that. So it is those hidden bits that actually are much higher than in your normal life. So you will stay in a hotel, you would have all those bits. And then, of course, you have your jet lags if you have long distance travel on top of that, which then influences your hormones, which then again is an energy diversion from detoxification. So, I mean, should we stop traveling? No. Okay, we shouldn't. But I think it would be worthwhile just having those easy wins and say prioritize sleep, prioritize your water, but drink clean water. Okay, when you travel, you tend to grab a plastic bottle in the airport. Okay.
Yeah.
Take your own bottle and make sure that it is not a plastic one, just have a metal one and fill it up with clean water. It's things like that that you say, well, what can we actually control when we travel? Because traveling is fun.
Sure, absolutely. Well, you touched on some things there in terms of daily practices that could support around travel. But I wonder, after someone goes through this procedure like myself, what are sort of the daily practices that I should deploy to maintain results?
Yeah, because you will have removed a lot of toxins now, which is great. So you kind of have a fairly clean sheet of paper to start again. So you want to minimize the impact on it. That is reducing whatever you're in contact with as much as possible without becoming paranoid, because we live in the world that we're living. No, but otherwise you just go stressed. And I've been down that rabbit hole of you say, I need to avoid everything. And then you get super stressed and say, okay, I'll do what I can do. And then support your detoxification. So you detoxify through your skin. Okay, and maybe heavy metals would be through sweating. So infrared sauna would be really good. Then you detoxify through your gut. And then your microplastics will go through the gut. So certain bacteria will help you reduce your microplastic load. Nice soluble fibers intake will reduce your, so otto beans and lentils and things like that, okay, will be very healthy for you to reduce your microplastics even further each time when you come in contact with it. The PFAS is a tricky one. Because they're the forever chemicals. I mean, their half-life takes 20 to 30 years, and that's only half of it gone. So then it takes another 20 to 30 years for the other half to go. So those are the trickiest ones, and they're the trickiest ones to avoid. But I think the most important message really is it is the overload of toxicity that is important for us to. So if you already say, I'm taking care of my plastics, I'm taking care of my heavy metals, I'm taking care of benzene, I've got an electric car, and I've got an air filter in my home, and I drink reverse osmosis water, and I'm doing everything I can. I'm using clean products at home that are just natural. I'm using makeup that is natural. I don't use waterproof mascara and things like that. But you say all the things I can actually control, then the PFAS will only be one element that is a lot more difficult to control. And your own detoxification, if genetically not compromised, should be able to take care of that.
Wonderful, wonderful insights. How do you determine who is a good candidate for the INUSpheresis procedure?
Well, for our clients, we kind of measure in the main. We measure their toxic load, and that's why we started doing it in the first place. Because our clients are like yourself, okay, very health conscious, or doing all the right things, read all the right books, okay, they know what they need to do. And yet, when we kept on measuring, it said that toxic load remains. Okay, is the one thing that you're saying. I mean, the VO2 max is fine, the nutrient levels, but everything is okay, but that toxic load remains. So it's a hard one to get under control because we live in the world that we've created, and that is very unnatural for our system. So what can you do, and how often do you need to do it? I mean, how do you identify whether yes or no you're a candidate? Everybody's a candidate. I've put my children through it. Okay, and my youngest is 18. Okay, because I said I just want to keep the energy going for their brain, for their heart, for their muscle, for everything as long as possible. So it's sad, but it's true.
Interesting. Yeah, because it doesn't sound like it's a one-time intervention. It sounds like this is a protocol that could be really supportive on an ongoing basis,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Where do you think that INUSpheresis sort of fits when you think about the future of preventative medicine, which you've been at the forefront for many years? How do you see this?
As I said, I think it's complete part of it.
Yeah.
Because it's the one area that we can support, but we can't control. Whilst exercise, nutrition, sleep, relaxation, I can kind of control. That part, it's a bit out of my control.
It really isn't a fair fight, right?
No.
You know, there's a wonderful doctor, Dr. Stephen Cabral, and he talks about the rain barrel effect and how
Yes.
we all have a barrel of toxic capacity. And the goal is just to keep drilling a hole in the bottom of that
Exactly.
barrel because there's so many out of
Exactly.
control exposures that we are recipients of. And this seems like such an amazing protocol to support that.
We find toxins in people's eluate of pesticides that have been banned since the 1970s.
Unbelievable.
Well, hold on. Okay, this person was only born in the 90s. How can they possibly have a toxin in their system that was stopped being used in the 1970s?
Unbelievable.
And that's the frightening thing.
Right.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. And tell me, you know, and maybe this is an unfair question, but I'd love to know, when do you think we'll get this in the United States? And, you know, because I had to travel for this and had the privilege and the luxury of doing so, but so many couldn't. And there are so many people that would benefit this. When we think of first line responders, we think of firewomen, firemen, of police, etc. So any insight into when we might get it in the United States? Not that we don't want to come see you, but
More than welcome to come here. I would have thought it's going to be there in the next 2 to 3 years. I would have thought so. I mean, you've got plasma exchange in the United States, but
that's different. And
that's
can you
very
speak
different.
to that? Because I think there were a lot of folks, when I expressed that I was going to be coming over to do this, they're like, oh, we have that here. I'm like, no, this is a whole different level of filtration. Can you speak to the difference there?
Well, the difference is massive, actually. I mean, they're two complete. Well, they're portrayed to do the same thing, but they don't. So in a plasma exchange, it does exactly that. It takes all the plasma out and it replaces it with a chemical solution that looks like plasma. Now, there's lots of good things in your plasma. Your hormones are in your plasma. Your immune cells are in your plasma. I mean, there's an enormous amount of good things in your plasma. To take it all out is very dramatic thing to do. So we have definitely chosen not to go that way on purpose. So what the double filtration does, it does exactly that. It takes those elements out of your blood that are unwanted and leaves everything in there that you actually need. So it's a lot more gentle as a treatment, and it makes a lot more sense clinically, of course.
Yeah, and I experienced that on the first treatment, obviously leading to the second one today, but very interesting. And what's one belief about sort of detoxification or health optimization that you really disagree with? Is there something that, you love to hear?
Yeah, I mean, I would say this, if there's only one that I can say, I can display.
You can say one.
But if I say one, I would say there is no one size fits all.
Okay.
And it is often, I mean, the definitely the longevity industry is very, very much led by men. And they see things through that angle. Okay, now women need a completely different strategy for longevity than men because we are physiologically, emotionally, biologically, brain-wise completely different. So you can't have, and even then, you would say a one size fits all does not work. I mean, what we do here is what I would call precision medicine, as in what is right for you, which is completely different than what is right for me, although we're both women, okay? And even if, I wish I was your age, but even if we were the same age, okay, that would be exactly how we would approach it. So the problem is it's a one size fits all. And okay, people just, oh, that's the latest fad. Let me just do that. Let me just go for an NAD infusion. Let me just do some more peptides, okay? And it's like, okay, what is actually proven? What is relevant for me? And if so, why? And what am I going to measure to see the impact? Because it's a science.
Yeah.
And we need to approach it that way. And I mean, in LA, I know people because I've been there and have looked at the apheresis there. It's like a nail salon. You could just go in and just like, oh, I just want that. And I'm like, no, hold on, okay. Well, this is a medical treatment, actually. This is something that can achieve something, and something that can achieve something can have possible side effects. So it might not be right for you.
Yeah.
So my one thing is there's no one size fits all, and just be clever, just investigate and just say, does this make sense? Okay. And most people kind of feel that and say, this can't possibly make sense. There's no research behind it. There's just nothing that actually has been proven. It might sound sexy. Okay. It might sound the right thing to do. And so is in the Hello magazine and does it. So therefore it's got to be good.
Right.
Okay. I mean, there's a lot of smoke and mirrors in the longevity market for sure.
I agree, because there's so much money to be made. And I have so many friends who are well-intentioned who will say, okay, just tell me the supplement. Tell me the thing to take. And it's without any understanding, to your very well made point, that bioindividuality is critical. Understanding what's underneath my hood from a laboratory, blood work, DNA, all the things, gut perspective. And we are each, to your point, so different and unique. And going into pulling up to a clinic where it's like you say, the NAD drip or the glutathione push or whatever, if we don't understand what the real
If you need it, brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant. But don't just do it because so does it.
Yeah.
That makes no sense.
And then on the flip side, I love your thoughts, because I feel like there's so many folks that outsource their health to an insurance company or to the government and don't take the agency. So there's a balance of people, getting curious and saying, okay, I am going to take the supplement, and I'm going to try the NAD drip because I've heard it's good for me. Somewhere in there needs to be, a balance where we can take ownership of our health, stay curious, work with a functional medicine practice, a Viavi clinic, etc. So tell me more about what you do here at Viavi, to give me a sense of all of the things that you do and how you work with folks, if you wouldn't mind.
No, I don't mind at all. It's quite unique at what we do because, I mean, we've evolved over many, many decades now. And we take somebody's health as a totality. So we would look as much as if you're a first-time client, we would look at your DNA, at your epigenetics, say your metabolomics, say your proteomics, okay? We look at, clearly we're doing all the cancer screens and cardiovascular screens and all that, obviously. So we look at current health and just make sure that that's fine. And we do that in a lot of depth, more than you would normally be familiar with. Then we look at medium and long-term health. And for that, we really said, one of the really early drivers for potential disease or discomfort, or decline, okay, which we don't want, because we want to stretch that health span for as long as possible. And then we look at performance, as in how well can I be today? Okay, how can I wake up every morning and feel like, world, watch out, here I come, But this is how I want to wake up, okay, when I'm 21 or when I'm going to be 91. Okay, my mom's 88 this year. And if you would meet her, you wouldn't say she's anything older than 60, and she behaves like she's 25.
That's great.
So, but that's how I want to be, because she's got that energy, and it's not about looks. It is about how she feels and how she can live life the way she wants to live it. And that's, I think, exactly what we want to achieve. So for that, you need to be super personalized. You need to be saying, fine, and who are you, Nicole? Okay, what is your DNA? What are your weak links? How do we support it? Where do you need some scaffolding? Where can you do it yourself? Because eventually, I don't want to live the perfect life. Okay, I want to live my life. Okay, and my life is getting up, getting kids to school, to commuting in, seeing clients. Just, I mean, it's busy. Okay, I mean, last week I was speaking to a journalist about the life in a day in the life of Dr. Donnai. And I said, I'm going to disappoint you because I'm not going to be saying, I'm not going to be lying to you and saying, oh, Sabine, isn't she saintly? She does everything right. Okay, if only we could do the same. I said, it's not. I live in the real world. But for me to be able to achieve what I do want to achieve from a health point of view in the real world is by being very precise, as in what is relevant to me. Okay, where do I put 20% of my energy to achieve 80% of outcome? And that's exactly what we do here. Our clients are busy people that just want to get on with life, but they want somebody to somehow, like you would go to a wealth manager, that said, okay, you've got the expertise. Here's my couple of million. Okay, this is actually where we're going to invest in because that makes sense. That's what you want to achieve. And we do exactly the same thing with your health. So you give us the responsibility to somehow say, this makes sense for you. And then you will say, this doesn't make sense in my life. And then we say, okay, fine, we compromise here. This is what we do there because you want to get on living eventually. Okay, you don't want to spend 7 hours a day like a Brian Johnson trying to stay healthy. God forbid he gets run over by a car.
I know. Bless poor Brian Johnson's heart. Okay? Totally.
No. So we're living in the life. Okay, so we need things doing, but we also don't want to pay the price.
Totally. So INUSpheresis is like confession. Is that what it is for you? All your sins are exonerated as long as you come once a year.
Exactly. Well, in a way, yes.
No,
okay. There's shortcuts.
Yeah.
And I like shortcuts because, I mean, as I said, I mean, I enjoy sitting down with my friends and I enjoy having a good time. Okay, yes. But, okay, I never want to ideally pay the price. So I just kind of know and say, I can push there, but here I just need to hold back a bit. So yes, so cleaning out is a bit of a shortcut.
Yes. And it's because it isn't a fair fight, right? I call it like we do carbon offsets. I call it toxin offsets, right?
Yep.
You pick your poison, literally, and then knowing that you're doing all the right things, like coming to a Viavi, like, you know, doing an INUSpheresis to keep things clean.
There's not really that much you can do within the toxin world, as we said earlier. Within the toxin world, there's only that much that you can do to somehow protect yourself.
Yeah.
And the rest, we need something that actually cleans out. And I find it super sad that we got to that point, but it's a reality.
It is. Yeah. Well, you're doing wonderful things to help solve for that. If people wanted to, you know, any last bit of advice first, you know, for folks that are really high performing or in leadership roles where there's, you know, extra stress, etc. Any last advice or guidance that you might give them?
Keep the balance somehow. I think it's important to somehow know that you are human. I think a lot of people kind of push beyond that and say, I can cope, and you will only cope for that long, but you live out of your savings account. And that's where it becomes dangerous. Okay, you're saying you keep that savings account or something will happen, whether it's a cancer comes along, whether it's a car crash, whether it is an emotional stress, whatever it might be, but something's going to come that you need suddenly a load of energy to cope with. And don't use that load of energy in your savings account to actually live on a day-to-day basis, because then you're going to pay the price. So identify your weak links and then identify how much reserve do you have. Okay. And that's how you cleverly actually manage your health.
And I love that. And I love what you said earlier about sort of, you know, making sure that we're using those reserves and using that health to fight a good longevity battle for ourselves as opposed to fighting off the toxins on a daily. Yeah, I think that's wonderful. If people want to follow you or kind of visit Viavi and be a part of INUSpheresis and all the things you have going on here, how can they find you? Website, email, all the things.
Website easy. It's www.viavi. That's Viavi, as in the way to life in French. .com.
All right, so Viavi.com. And it's Dr. Donnai, a pleasure. And just thank you for all that you've done for many years to bring things like this to fruition and so that people can come and be the best versions of themselves. It's wonderful.
Look, thanks for having me on your podcast.
Absolutely.
Funny calls.